Gatsu has been one of my favorite manga of all time for a long while now. Kiriyama Rei is an incredible character, and his journey throughout the story has been very captivating. One of the most important shifts in the story and in Kiriyama's character happened in chapter 52, where, due to Kawamoto Hina's influence, Rei felt like he forever changed as a person for the better. The importance of this scene runs far deeper than initially presented, and in this video, I'll be dissecting just why Hina's words in chapter 52 completely changed the course of Rei's life. If you end up enjoying this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. Also, subscribe to my Patreon for early access to more videos like this one. The link is in the description down below. Now, why exactly did Hina's words have such an enormous effect on Rei and completely change his current view on his life? Let's talk about it. Kiriyama Rei has experienced many terrible problems throughout his life, from the deaths of his biological family, the frustrating living circumstances regarding the Kuda family, and just him suffering from severe loneliness. He was never a boy who had too much going for him. Despite having many issues in his life to deal with, there was one issue that had a profound effect on creating the depressing, quiet, and invisible persona he has today. And that issue is bullying. Ray was never the best at making friends, but when he started getting bullied, everything became much worse. Umino showcases the effects the bullying had on Ray's life in numerous instances throughout the story, but there are specific chapters that highlight the disastrous effects that bullying had on Ray's life and his mentality. In chapter 9, Ray expresses his feelings about his school life. He says that I was never able to take part in the conversations of my classmates, no matter what. I was never able to keep up. I always felt like I was listening to a different language. Kiriyama expresses how difficult it was for him to have a normal social life. He was just a boy who wasn't really built to have a natural talent for socializing. This, of course, doesn't mean he will never have friends or he will always struggle. He would just need immense help from others to help him have a proper social life just like the other kids. Unfortunately for Ray, he never had someone like that in his life, and eventually he started to get bullied instead. Chapter 51 goes a bit more in depth about the bullying Ray was experiencing while in school. We see Ray in elementary school by a ladybug bush. As he's minding his business, you see an aluminum can full of rocks get thrown at him for no reason. As he looks towards his assailants, they start laughing and making jokes amongst each other. They say things like, "Uh-oh, he's looking this way. Scary. Is the four-eyed robot." We don't quite understand if there was a good reason for why they were bullying him, and Ray doesn't quite understand either. The chapter continues as Ray goes a bit more in depth with his history. He reminds the readers that he lost his parents and his sister in an accident and got adopted into a shogi family who lived in Tokyo. He was already all by himself in an elementary school in rural Nagano, but when he came to a huge, enormous school in Tokyo, he truly became alone. Ray starts talking about the mindset he developed due to his unfortunate life situation. He says that because he never once had a single friend, he saw that as normal. He said he forced himself to believe that it was normal to be all alone and not have any friends. He forced himself to think this so he would be capable of finding some sort of mental peace and come to terms with his severely deficient social life. Due to his situation, Ray did everything he could to hide his presence. He did this so the attacks from his classmates wouldn't get any worse. He got so used to doing this that he would go every day and act unconcerned. At recess, he would pretend to be absorbed in books, and during lunch breaks, he would hide in a shrub hidden from the view of his classmates. It is pretty depressing seeing how Ray had to live his life just to avoid escalating his bullying, but his problems doesn't end there. Even at home, he has to deal with similar verbal abuse from his siblings. Atsumu tells Ray that he should stop trying to earn points so transparently that she's our mom, not his. Kyoko follows up and says, "I hate you. You're so creepy. I mean, you're like a robot." With Kyoko, he's still called the same insults he hears from his school bullies, and with Ayumu, he's still not seen as a proper member of the family and is still treated as an outsider trying to steal their family away from them. The level of mental stress Kiriyama has to go through for just being himself at both his home and his school is very depressing. He used shogi as an escape from his problems, but even then, he still ended up thinking to himself, can I keep this up forever? Just thinking about this depressing question took his breath away, and he felt like he was sinking deeper and deeper with nothing in his life to hold on to except shogi. Ray feels stuck and doesn't have a proper way of solving his heavy problems. The bullying is clearly having a huge negative impact on Ray's life, and it only ruins him more and more as time goes on. Chapter 114.5 goes more in depth on the circumstances surrounding Ray's bullying, and it gives some insight into how far his mental state has fallen due to the bullying. Chapter 114.5 starts with a quote: "The seat next to me is always empty." This sentence already sets the tone for the chapter. On a field trip, students are usually paired up with a partner and they ride together towards their destination. However, Ray never had that experience of having a fellow student sit next to him and join in a conversation, since he always ends up alone. Usually, this doesn't happen since it's the norm for teachers to force students to sit together, but for Ray, he never had that luxury. The chapter continues and shows the person who's supposed to be Ray's partner complaining about having to sit next to Ray. This not only embarrasses Ray, but it reminds everyone on the bus just how unappealing Ray is to the rest of his class. The kid continues to scream about not wanting to sit next to Ray, and eventually the teacher says it's fine, and Ray ends up alone once again. Ray tries to see the brighter side of the situation, but at the end of the day, we still see his classmates smiling, having fun, and talking to each other happily, while we see Ray all alone looking pretty depressed and discouraged. This public shaming of Ray being so common shows just how normalized it is for Ray to be mistreated while experiencing his school life. Instead of being upset at his mistreatment, Ray is more worried about standing out too much because if he does, the bullying would only get worse. Ray has reached a point where he can't even recognize what right or wrong behavior is, and he has been hurt so much that he is far more concerned with keeping his pain to a minimum rather than seeking unreliable help and making everything worse for him. This mind state is expanded on more with the rest of the field trip. They arrive at the site, and the field they're supposed to play at is huge, and there really isn't a good hiding spot for Ray to run away to. Ray starts thinking about the different scenarios that can happen if he was spotted eating by himself, since he would be standing out. He says that being disliked by everyone is hard on his own, so why do I need to be publicly humiliated on top of that? Ray has already accepted the fact that he isn't liked by anyone, and just sees it as a fact of his life. As depressing as it is, he still tries to minimize the mental damage as much as possible and finds some trees to hide behind to have his lunch. After lunch is over, they head back to the bus, and the teacher was asking if anyone's seat neighbor didn't come back yet. He sees Kiriyama by himself and asks where his neighbor is at. Kiriyama says it's okay, I never had one in the first place. As those words left his mouth, he started getting choked up. He never had one in the first place. While on the drive back, he thinks to himself, Sensei, will the seat next to me stay empty for my whole life? Again, Ray's thinking about his future and honestly sees no way out of his bullying cycle. He asked himself a similar question back in chapter 51, where he asked just how long he can keep this up for. These experiences are clearly impacting him in a disastrous way, and it's only a matter of time before he can't take it anymore. So how exactly did he find salvation? What exactly made him realize that he wasn't the problem? What gave him hope that everything he's been through wasn't his fault and isn't his burden to bear alone? The answer is simple: Hina Kawamoto. Hina completely transformed how Ray viewed his own life and showed him a path he never knew existed. Hina provided validation for Ray's journey and made him feel like he's been saved from continuously sinking down into his own trauma. Chapter 52 is where everything changed and arguably one of the biggest turning points in Ray's character and his life. The chapter started off by giving background on what Hina was going through in school. There was a big bullying problem going on in Hina's school, and Hina and her friend Chiho got caught up in it. It started when the class shuffled seats. Chiho started getting ignored by everyone around her. The bullies didn't really have a good reason to bully her, but they kept alienating her from the class. And since everyone was scared of the bully group, they didn't offer Chiho any help. Well, everyone except Hina. The situation was very similar to what happened to Ray. The class was both alienating Chiho and Ray, and standing out more just meant that the bullying would get worse. We see just how terrible the bullying affected Chiho, since even till this day, she still isn't very comfortable with interacting with her own age group. Despite the similarities Chiho's bullying had with Ray's bullying, there was one key difference: Hina. Chiyo had someone to rely on when it was all said and done. Chiyo had someone to call a friend. Ray didn't have a single person like that, and it wasn't necessarily a matter of luck. The unfortunate natural reaction to someone trying to aid a bully victim is that the bully group shifts their bullying towards them as well. This is a concept that Ray understands, and it's how he internally justified himself never getting help from the people around him. In chapter 55, Ray says, "It's only natural. You don't want your family to go through hardships like that. I mean, the one who looks out for Hina-san more than anyone else is you, Akari-san. I've been cut off from people ever since I was little, but no one who's lending a helping hand wants something utterly horrible like that to happen to them. There's always that risk of getting hurt yourself when it comes to helping others in their bullying situation. So prioritizing yourself and your family is natural for most people to do, so they choose to instead ignore the pain and suffering someone else is going through so they can protect themselves from going through that same pain. And as predicted, Hina fell victim to this as well. The chapter continues with Hina being there for Chiho and helping her as much as she could, but there was very little she can do to stop the bullying itself. Despite Hina's efforts, the bullying kept getting worse. The teachers and classmates kept ignoring it, and the bullying kept escalating, and eventually Chiyo transferred schools. Chiyo gave Hina a painful goodbye, and even after Chiyo left, the bullies still kept making fun of her behind her back. Hina got angry at them, and eventually the bullying shifted towards her. Despite getting bullied herself now, Hina still thinks about Chiho and gets emotional while talking to Akari. Hina says that Chiho was really hurt and scared by the bullying, and she really didn't want to change schools. Hina was angry at how unfair the situation was and runs outside to get some fresh air. Ray catches up to her, and Hina starts to give a monologue that will forever change Ray's life. Hina says, "How did it end up like this? Up until the second year, we used to have so much fun every day at school. Chio-chan was so upset. So why did everyone pretend not to see it and say stuff like, if you stick up for her, you get picked on too? Why?" But it turned out just the way everyone had said. Starting tomorrow, I'll be all alone. Being alone is scary. Honestly, I've been scared of this the whole time. But I won't regret it one bit. I can't. Because I know that what I did was definitely not wrong. These words, given Hina's background, emotions, history, and recent actions, completely changed Ray's view on the world and his own life. Ray says, "At that moment, as I watched her say that with tears pouring down her face, I felt like I've just been struck by lightning." He starts having flashbacks to his past when he was getting bullied, and the quote continues with, "It's strange, even after so much time has passed, a person can tempestuously be saved from going in the utterly wrong direction." He says this as we see an image of Hina offering a helping hand to Kid Ray, who is suffering from bullying, and thus giving him his salvation. Ray speaks a bit more on his feelings about this in chapter 88. He says that until then, I thought that whether I was right or wrong was something that other people had to decide for me, like in a trial. But that day, when I heard her say what I did wasn't wrong, and saw her overwhelmed with anxiety, but never letting go of the firm grasp she had on the helm of her heart, I saw a light that I didn't have in me. Yeah, without a doubt, a part of me that day was created by her. Hina's words completely transformed Ray because it validated his past experiences by showing him that it was not his fault that any of that happened to him, and it also crushed the idea that he is someone that nobody would ever help. Ray in chapter 55 says, "But that day, even as Hina-chan was saying she was scared, she said that she didn't regret it, and she wasn't wrong. Like she was trying to convince herself of it. At that moment, I felt like I've been saved." Even though Hina didn't help Ray directly with his bullying, she showed him that there are people out there that would not hesitate to help him even if they would be put in his same terrible situation. As mentioned earlier, Ray's situation was very similar to Chiho, but unlike Ray, Chiho had a friend in Hina. Ray knew no one wanted to help him since they would be bullied as well, and it just wasn't worth it. But when Hina told him that she still doesn't regret what she has done for Chiho, and she will most likely do the exact same thing again, even if she ends up getting bullied as well. Ray, who can see himself in Chiho, felt comfort and peace with her answer. She was someone that would have saved him if she was there when he was getting bullied. When he didn't even consider the possibility of help ever coming, she showed him that there are people out there in the world that would have come to his aid. Hina herself was struggling through the same bullying all three was going through, but still showed heart and bravery with how she tried to handle the situation. Chapter 52 ends with Ray vowing that he will live his life trying to pay back what Hina did for him. He says, Hina-chan, thank you. I really owe you. I promise you I'll stick with you. Even if it takes me my whole life, I am going to pay you back. Ray has never dedicated his life to something as passionately as he is doing here, and it makes it clear just the heavy impact Hina had on Ray's life. The bullying and loneliness he felt both at school and at home tormented him for most of his life. His worldview grew darker and colder the more painful his experiences became, but Hina showed him just how bright and full of hope the world can be, even for someone like him. This scene was one of my favorites in stories in general, because it isn't too often where I see a character retroactively save another from trauma they didn't even know they had. Ray knew his bullying was a problem, but since it was so far in the past, he most likely thought he was fine the way he was now and didn't consider it a current issue. Hina's words saving him showed that he still needed someone to be that light for him and save him from the mental shackles his horrible bullying put on him. Ray became more determined and more dedicated as a person due to this and stopped blaming himself or running away from what he went through. He can now stand firm knowing he wasn't ever at fault for what he went through, and there are people close to him that will always lend a helping hand, even if it hurts them. The impact Hina had on Ray's life was a beautiful storyline, and it helped develop the character dynamic to one of the most unique ones in the medium. This scene was just the start of the long and beautiful journey of Hina and Ray, who will continue to have masterclass moments throughout the series as they love and grow together. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. Also subscribe to my Patreon for early access to videos like this one. The link is in the description down below. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.